On this episode of OC Unsolved, we cover the very strange class of ships known as the Proteus class, a class of ships consisting of 4 colliers that all went missing except for one. Why did this happen, and who may have been to blame? Let's get into it. The Proteus class were 4 ships built for the US Navy in the Newport News shipyard, built between 1910 and 1913. We'll be talking about the ships in order of when they were commissioned, but we'll be talking about the second one a little bit later. The USS Cyclops was built in 1910 and was built to carry coal to the US, but ended up carrying anything the Allies needed around the Atlantic. She did not discriminate, and when it came to ore, she carried anything from tungsten to, of course, coal. However, the coal in America was not of the same quality needed to power America's Navy, so America did what Americans always do. When something is trashy, buy something from Europe. She and the rest of her class were 165 meters long, 20 meters wide, and 9 meters below the waterline. She mostly operated in the Baltic Sea, supplying ships with coal. She was then moved to operate out of Rhode Island, supplying the US occupation of Veracruz, as well as carrying refugees from Mexico. When World War I broke out, she traveled all around the Atlantic carrying anything the Allies needed, from tanks and troops to ammo. However, one of the strangest things about that ship was her captain. Born in 1862 as Johann von Friedrich, in 1878, he jumped ship and found his way into a saloon in San Francisco where he worked there. Eventually, he found his way onto other ships, becoming a ship's master. He worked on various ships until making his way onto the Cyclops. He was known to berate and curse officers for minor things and lashed out frequently. He also was known to do his duty in long underwear and a top hat. Then, he also once chased a man around the deck with a pistol, and this was during the times when he was apparently sane. Imagine what he was like when he was insane. And there's more to it, but we'll get there, I promise. The ship left Rio on the 16th of February 1918, bound for Maryland, stopping in Salvador before continuing. In Salvador, it was found that the ship had a cracked cylinder on the engine. Then, she stopped in Barbados because she was sitting below the Primsoil line, meaning she was overloaded. However, she was above that line in Brazil despite being overloaded, meaning that she was likely sitting lower because of flooding. She left on March 9th, and despite a rumored sighting, she was never seen again. And that was it. No wreckage was ever found. Did she disappear in the Bermuda Triangle? Well, probably, but that's for later. The next ship of this class is the Proteus. Launched in September 1912, she also supplied ships at the U.S. occupation of Veracruz before being one of the first ships to cross the Panama Canal in 1914. She then operated going to the Philippines, crossing the Pacific and Atlantic many times, then traveling to Pearl Harbor. In 1923, she went back to New England and eventually was sold to the Canadian Merchant Marine, and Canada decided it would be a great idea to sail her right through where the Cyclops vanished. What could go wrong? Then, while traveling in between South America and Canada, in the exact same area as her sister, she disappeared without a trace because Canada hadn't learned their lesson yet. The last one is the USS Nereus. She served in the Caribbean before being decommissioned after World War I and sold to Canada in 1940, but she still carried ore from South America to the US in World War II. Because no one has learned a single lesson from the first two, she was sent between South America and North America before disappearing in the Bermuda Triangle, last seen on December 10th. And with that, let's get into the theories. The first theory is that a German U-boat would have sank her. This was during World War II, and submarines did operate in the area. They could go very far, but no U-boat ever claimed her. Claiming ships was a matter of pride for the Germans, and it would not have been a war crime to sink the ship. U-boats were required by German law to report all the ships they sank, and even then, why would they cover it up? It would just be making their own resume look worse. The second theory is that she was overloaded. When she was loading in Brazil, the captain assigned a less experienced crew member in charge of loading, while he locked the more experienced guy in his cabin for something minor that he did yesterday, causing the ship to be overloaded with ore. But she had been overloaded before and could sustain it. However, she had suffered years of this, as well as acidic metals corroding the beams. This could cause the ship to collapse in calm seas as she was sailing. This had been claimed as the most likely idea, and honestly, I kinda believe this one, at least for the Cyclops. But it's weird that all the other ships survived so long before this happened. The third theory is that due to being in the Bermuda Triangle, she was abducted by aliens. The fourth theory is that she was lost in a storm. Off the coast of Virginia, the weather was very bad the day that she was supposedly sighted. This could have caused a shifting of the cargo leading to her capsizing. That, or it broke in half in a storm and sank. The ship was known to hog and sag a lot, meaning it would be weakened. In all likelihood, it was most likely a combination of a few of these. The ship was already suffering wear and tear and bad maintenance, as well as a highly corrosive cargo being carried. Now, what happened to that last ship that I mentioned, the USS Jupiter? She took coal from the US to France in World War I, and in 1917 crossed the Panama Canal to become America's first aircraft carrier. She was renamed USS Langley, setting many new records and advancements for naval aviation. With a few pilots and planes damaged along the way, she even carried a room for carrier pigeons for the first few years, as well as having a hangar unlike other carriers. Eventually, her research and advancements in carrier design resulted in the USS Saratoga, and the rest is history. She was converted again to remove part of the flydeck, becoming a seaplane tender. During the Second World War, she was on her way from Australia to Java, with only 2 destroyers escorting her, when a Japanese aircraft squadron found them and began attacking them. They did not sink the ship, but they did cripple it enough so that it was scuttled on purpose on the 27th of February 1942. The Proteus class of ships will likely never be found. Most efforts have stalled and there's no evidence as to where they could be, but at least they will live on due to the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. With 3 ships vanishing, no evidence, and an everlasting mystery, the vanishing of the Proteus class will remain unsolved.